Okay, Teddy, explain GameStop to me.
Isn't that the question of the week? The story is yet to end, so that's where things get interesting. Um,
So go back to the beginning. Like, how did this happen?
okay, so what we are seeing happen is what's called it's almost like a classic example of what's known as a short squeeze, which is like a big financial term, um, which is pretty simple to understand. There's sort of an opposite um, technique you can do with the market. With instead of buying stocks, you can buy what are called shorts. And so a short is buying high and trying to sell low. So basically, the goal is that you're betting against a company, kind of the opposite the way that you would be if you were buying a stock.
So are shorts are sort of stocks that are companies that are not necessarily doing that great, that maybe like sort of about to tank.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the big thing about investing is that you base it around a strategy. So you think you know something that other people don't, because if everyone knew it, then the market would have already changed, right? So in this case, a few hedge funds, which are really large financial institutions where people with high net worth, they give their money to these places to invest for them, usually for a little bit of a fee and also some fee to hold their money. So these hedge funds got the idea that stock was going to decrease, which is a good bet. And if you look at GameStop stock, you'd see that makes complete sense. Um, the problem was that a lot of people had that same idea.
Okay. So then somewhere on Reddit, a bunch of people had this idea that they were going to buy up a bunch of stock, and it wasn't just GameStop, right? It was other, it looked like 90s retail, just all in one giant like hedge fund.
Yeah, it's companies we probably haven't thought of in 10 years. You know,
I think
GameStop.
about Bed Bath and Beyond all the time.
Yep. BlackBerry though. We all had those at one point, and I couldn't tell you the last time I've seen one, but um, AMC. It was a lot of companies that were affected by COVID too, because again, it's a pretty simple strategy to say, okay, well, who's gonna hurt from COVID? Let's bet against them. Let's buy shorts. There were all these companies or all these hedge funds that were thinking that these shares were going to continue to decrease. And in fact, so many people had that idea that the element of a short that Reddit took advantage of is when you are doing a short and when you're trying to, we said buy high, sell low. But the wrinkle to buying high and selling low with a short is you are required to borrow someone's share to sell when you short. So obviously, you think
All right, wait,
there,
wait, wait. How is, go back a minute, because
yes,
I'm a little, what does that mean?
yeah, that's a perfectly good question. Um, so again, if you think that the stock is going to decrease,
Mm-hmm.
the only way you can take advantage of that is by you have to sell a share before you buy a share. It's counterintuitive. So you sell at a high price, and then when it drops, you buy it back at a low price. In order to sell it at that high price, you have to borrow it from somebody who actually already owns it. So you'd go over to another hedge fund or a friend and you'd say, okay, you own GameStop stock. I think it's going to decrease. You you don't because you own it. Let me sell your share. And then in a month or in 60 days or 90 days or however many you decide on, I'll by the end of that number of days, by the end of that term, I'll buy it back for you. And because you're being such a good friend and you're loaning me your share, I'll also give you a little fee. So um, I'll give you 2% of however much I buy, and then I'll buy you the share back or whatever. So
this is like if I was like, "Hey, I'm going to go get coffee." And you were like, "Oh, could you get me some?" And I say, "Teddy, you're my friend. I'm going to get you coffee." And you give me $10 and I walk around the hall and go to Hungry Minds and I get coffee, but you're the price is I'm thinking the price is low, but you gave me $10. So I could pocket the rest of it.
yes,
Except what I didn't know is that Hungry Minds raised their prices. They didn't raise their prices. And so the $10 that you gave me isn't enough. So I then have to foot some of the bill.
yeah.
That's the way to think about it.
Another way to kind of think of it is like, you know, when you pay for something with a credit card, Visa pays for it. When you go to Hungry Minds, if I give you my credit card, Visa goes and pays for it, and then in a month, I have to pay Visa for it, right? So it's that kind of simple idea. The only difference is it's, you know, we're buying and selling stock, so the price of the thing that I bought changes. So it's almost like, imagine if you used your credit card at Hungry Minds and um, coffee costs $5, but a month from now, imagine instead of paying whatever price it was when you bought it, you're paying whatever price it is when your credit card bill is due.
So it could be more or it could be less.
Yes.
Got
And
it.
so it was a pretty simple bet, right? It makes a lot of sense. A place that sells video games, like physical video game copies, is not going to be doing very well at a time where A, you can not go outside, and B, um, just download everything on your PS5 anyway. So from the hedge funds perspectives, this was like a perfect short. It's just you just short and then you get your money back. So yeah, again, this is when those Redditors step in and they realize that um, all of these hedge funds pretty soon are going to have to buy back the shares that they borrowed from the other places. When you're a hedge fund, you just go to this marketplace and you just say, can I buy someone's share? And whoever shows up gives it to you. So the Redditors realized that they could be the ones who walk up to GameStop and say, I have the stocks you need to buy. They also realized that so many people had these outstanding shorts. Um, a lot of them would be coming to ask, can I buy someone's GameStop stock? And that's where this short squeeze, that's how the play works. Bunch of people who have these shorts that are about to become due, that they're going to have to buy back the share, and you buy all of the stocks you can to increase the price. And at that point, that's when the hedge fund investors really start to worry.
Because then the hedge funders are going to have to spend more money when they have to buy it back.
Yes. And if you start to do the short squeeze, if the juice is loose on the squeeze, they start to worry and they start to question if that strategy of thinking we can buy high and sell low, if the short was even worth it in the first place. The jury's out on what's going to happen, but it seems like the squeeze worked to a pretty fair degree.
So the buyback is the buyback is determined by what?
Usually you sign a contract for a certain amount of time, and before that term ends, you have to pay it back. So it's kind of like a mortgage. You know, you sign like a 30-year, 15, or 5, and you can, if you have a 30-year mortgage, you can pay it back in 15 if you want, but by 30 years it's over.
And that by
Student
that
loans,
point it has to be done.
yes. Yes. So the trick with the short squeeze and what gets people scared when they're in the short position is that as those Reddit investors, you start to buy outstanding shares, right? Shares that are available. And when you do that, anytime people are trying to buy something, the price increases. And so you buy before these hedge fund investors need to buy. So as it comes, say this is the end of the term, you start buying here, and then the stock price starts increasing, and these hedge fund investors who don't need to buy until this date, they see the stock price going up and they think, if we wait, this is where the stock's going to be on the day our term is due, right? So why don't we just buy them now and get out of our position to avoid this increase in price or paying off your mortgage early? That's kind of how they did it. The issue is when you then decide, I want to buy now instead of 15 days, however long from now, then you are also participating in that buying frenzy.
In the hike.
Yeah. And so that's why it's called a squeeze, right? Because you're waiting here and you think, I need I need the price to be below, say, this level in order to make money. But it's going up and up. And so you push your term, you buy early, you get out of your short early because you're afraid of that price window. Um, and in this case, a lot of those hedge funds probably ended up losing a lot of money because GameStop stock, which is one of the hardest things to say, went from being worth like $15 to $20 to being worth, at one point it was like 500.
Whoa.
Yes.
So then the hedge fund had to buy it at $500 from the Redditors in or wait to see what would happen. And so
Yeah.
it's almost like a standoff where the Redditors are like, no, we're going to wait until you have to actually legally buy it back. And we're going to hold on to this, squeeze it, short squeeze, until that contract deadline. And then you have to buy it back at this price.
Yeah.
Is
That's
that
essentially,
happening? Is that actually happening?
so this is where the plot thickens.
Yes.
And this is the ongoing thing. So if you're interested in this, this is when you need to start reading some financial journals. Wall Street Bets, this Reddit thread, one thing that they have sort of a culture. It's like a movement. It's not merely just like individual investors. And one of the things that often occurs with these private buyers, like retail is what we call them, it's like people like you and me who are just like trying their hand at this, um, is they take advantage of certain ideas, like they borrow money from Robinhood in
And
order
that
to,
Robinhood is an app.
yes, and
Okay.
that's where the majority of this Reddit trading is done. A short squeeze is not an easy thing to pull off, and they end up borrowing money to try to pull it off, and so they become riskier. um, and depending on who you believe and depending on um, what you're reading, there are different elements to suggest that um, whether it was for the good of the market or whether it was for the good of the hedge funds or even just to prevent instability, because this was like a crazy thing that was happening. Um, Robinhood and a couple other trading firms restricted selling and buying, but mostly buying of a lot of these stocks in the past couple days.
So did that mean that the hedge funders couldn't buy it off of the Redditors?
What it meant mostly was that the hedge funders could, what we say call, close their short positions. So because Robinhood is a place where people, retail investors, regular people like you and me, trade, that meant people like you and me couldn't buy the stock but it meant that if you're a big hedge fund and you're dealing with a different broker, like if you can buy directly from the stock exchange, um, you would just go find a different person to sell you the stocks.
I think I get it. So somebody else could come in and then buy the stock, which would still drive the price up. Or if there were folks from the Redditors who were like, I'm in over my head, they could sell to the people who are outside of Robinhood.
Yeah. In the past 2 days, retail brokers like Robinhood have started to restrict the access to selling or to buying mostly a lot of these shares, GameStop, AMC. But that is not where these hedge funds go to buy or sell stocks. They go to these very large brokers, and those shops are still open.
Got it.
So what that means is that depending on how you view it, um, that gives these hedge funds a slight advantage in buying and selling these stocks because their marketplace, their store where they go to buy stocks is open and Robinhood is closed. So that's given these hedge funds the ability to close out a lot of their positions in an easier way than it would be otherwise. You and I would say in a month I'll buy this GameStop stock and I'll buy it at $40. And so a lot of traders end up buying options when they do shorts because it ensures that they have the ability to buy a share. And a lot of those options were due today, um, which is in some ways it's double edged because if you get it right, then your short works and your option works, so you make twice as much money. But if you get it wrong, your short doesn't work and then your option doesn't work and then you are
And then
losing a whole
you
lot of
lose the
money.
money. So today we'll find out if the Redditors squeeze actually worked.
Yeah, so I think the chips will fall. It's going to be a bit like confetti. This isn't just like a big thud. It's not going to end with a big thud, but
So you mean to say that it won't end with a bang, it'll end with a whimper?
one might even say that. I think it's opened up this whole new discussion over whether the decisions that Robinhood made were fair, for lack of a better word, because that the market runs on confidence. It's a lot of the reasons we have rules in place about what you are and aren't allowed to do in finance is based around this idea that if the market doesn't seem fair, then people won't want to invest in it. And obviously, through the years, we've seen a lot of instances in which things haven't seemed fair. Um, but as regulators and even like as traders, there is this element of fairness that often gets brought up when these things start to hit the fan.
So stay tuned.